Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to another webinar. Today we're going to be going into Social Studio and looking at the coronavirus. Can I just get someone to confirm they can hear me? And that you can see my screen as well. Great, thank you. Awesome. Okay, let's just jump straight in. Today we're going to do a very quick introduction, then we're going to go straight into Social Studio and do a live listening of what's been going on around coronavirus. I shouldn't sound so excited, but I am. How to listen. So I'm going to leave you with some quick tips around how you can listen for corona-related mentions with your brand, and then we're going to go into any questions. So my name is Leonard. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AF Digital. I'm at 6 times Salesforce certified and on my own personal learning journey. Ex-IBM BA/Agile PM. I also spent a lot of my career at Vodafone as a business analyst. Shout out to all the BAs out there. And my expertise, or my deepest expertise, is really in social listening and crisis management. This is actually how we started our journey as a Salesforce partner. We can see, here's a picture of me. This was about 8 years ago, presenting Radian 6, which was the original Social Studio product before it was renamed. That was really, it still was really awesome, but it was really focused on listening to social media at scale. And if you want to reach out to me, Robin_AFD at Twitter or Instagram. Great, so AF Digital, we are a Salesforce partner on the advisory board for partners for Marketing Cloud. This means that we meet up every year and talk about the product, give them feedback, they give us feedback. But this is really great. We're on this board with other partners like Accenture, Deloitte, Publicis, so it's a real honor. And so AF Digital as a business, we're a gold consulting partner. We're also a Salesforce.org registered partner. We are a multi-cloud partner, so we're across sales, service, marketing, community, and a few extras, including ISV partners. We've got a number of partners that we work with our customers. And our value proposition is really advisory, transformation projects, and we've got a managed service program called TeamX, which is really a hybrid managed service across marketing operations and technology. So where we started our journey, this was one of our first clients, Meralco in the Philippines. It's the largest retail power company in the Philippines. And we work with them on listening to social media around the time of crisis, because they'd often have typhoons and all sorts of catastrophe roll through, and really leveraging social media to identify what was actually a really big problem. Where were these problems that they weren't aware of, and how did they know if a problem was going to be a bad problem? So we worked with them and actually helped them set up a crisis dark site, which was a kind of an all-you-can-go place. Wherever there was a crisis, that was the place where they sent their customers to deflect them from calls. And we also helped them with a playbook and then monitoring social media. So this is a really great example. Alternatively, Social Studio has a fun side. So when there's no crisis happening, you can also use it for really amazing personalized engagement. And so this is what we did with the Stubbies brand. Stubbies, for those that aren't from Australia or New Zealand, they were short shorts from the 70s, and they got brought back into fashion in the early 10s, 2010, I guess you could say. They became cool again and everyone started wearing them to the beach. So AF Digital partnered with the brand and actually launched them back into the market. And we used social listening to listen in to when people were talking about cricket, rugby, barbecues, you know, those iconic cultural moments. And we proactively engaged on behalf of the brand. This was great because it was a really good use case for social listening and engagement when there's not a crisis. But today we have a crisis. So let's jump straight into Social Studio. Great. Okay, so you should be able to see Social Studio now. This is my Social Studio. So I've got a number of different workspaces. I'm just going to jump straight into COVID-19. This is the workspace I had set up. Great. So for those that don't know about Social Studio, it's kind of an all-you-can-eat social media management tool. We've got publishing, which is where you'd manage your publishing across all of your social channels. We've also got engagement, which is where you'd manage your inbound messages across all of your channels, but you also can proactively listen and engage through engagement as well. And I'm not going to spend any time really in this this part, but this is really where you go through and monitor all of your things. Oh, thank you. Happy birthday. So you go through here and you can monitor things, but you can also listen in. So if somebody mentions you in the news or there's a, say, YouTube video about you, that will get picked up. So this is a really great way to make sure that you're on top of all of these things, and you can then engage with them and manage them. Okay, great. So let's focus in. What I want to focus on today is the coronavirus crisis. And bear with me while it loads. This may take a little while to load, just because there's a lot of mentions. What I'm going to do is differently to last period. For those that have been in the last couple of sessions of these, I've done a 30-day analysis. What we're going to do today is actually a 45-day analysis. So we're looking at the start of March until mid-April. So it's actually 6 weeks. So this number is amazing. 718 million mentions in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, March 1st, April 14th. So you can see things are loading. This is a global search. We're really listening in for everything in the world. And you can see there's a few non-English keywords in here. But the very interesting thing is that out of all of these 718 million, these are the top 50 keywords used. So if you think about how many people have been using jam, I mean, there's a lot of people that are talking about jam. I don't know what that's related to. I might zoom in a bit. Let's just have an overall look at this dashboard. So this top widget, share of voice. So this is looking across these 718 million, how many people are talking about coronavirus versus Apple versus Google versus Coca-Cola. I've added a new one in this week. So this is looking at the size or the scale of the crisis if we were a brand. So if without coronavirus, you've got Apple, you've got Google. So Apple's 60% of the mentions, Google's 34%. This is their competition. And then we've got little old Coca-Cola. The reason I added Coca-Cola is because when you Google what is the most well-known brand in the world, Coca-Cola is it. And then I think Google and Apple came up in a different search. So I just wanted to try this out. So then we add coronavirus, and you can see here that it's dwarfed. There's like 6.43 or 643 million mentions about that. And these guys have a small share of that voice. So that shows you the scale of this crisis. That's way more than people are talking about those major brands. Apple's even with the fruit apple. If we look down at the 718, you can also see that a large volume of these guys are on Twitter. So Twitter, 667 million, and then 36.6 million YouTube, and then it goes down. Facebook's largely closed, so we can't get a lot from Facebook. But you can see here that there's just a large volume on Twitter. So it's really a place to listen and a place to go to. For any brands that aren't on Twitter, I highly recommend that it's just an important channel for your business. And if you don't have it set up and aren't listening for it, you may be missing out on some feedback, maybe some anger, maybe some love. All right, so let's just go down into this one. That's what I'm so excited about. So these are our topics, and we've got the same representation of these topics here. So if we look at, so I've got a general topic for the coronavirus. So you can see here, that's just general mentions of corona is a large 81.2%, which are not categorized into standard, into these details. So All right, so off pist, I'm just going to show you quickly the setup of how these topic profiles are created. For those that are not familiar with the back end of Social Studio, because this determines how we actually listen for these things. So I'll just zoom into here. So right now you can see here that you've got these different topics, coronavirus as a whole, and then we've got this orange is hospital, green is Trump, brown is death. I've been adding some things to this. Testing, quarantine, face masks, education. What else is there? I've added a whole bunch of topics that I want to listen for specifically. So what else have we got? Self-isolation, job loss. It's actually remarkably small compared to the wider conversation. Retail, recovered. So while I added death, I also added recovered. So you can see here there's not as many of those. Sick, education, face masks, quarantine, testing. So you can see here are some of the top things, the top topics that people are talking about. And I could probably zoom into any of them and kind of get a good sense of what's going on, but I'm not going to do that in this graph. I'm going to just jump out. Let's go in and show you how do we set up the listening. So Corona. Okay, so I've got this is my topic profile for Corona, and you can see here that so every topic profile is a grouping of keywords, and every topic profile under it has keyword groups. That didn't sound confusing. So you've got Corona as the topic profile, and that listens for everything. And then within that, you've got keyword groups. So we've got, say, death. Why did I pick this one? Death, dead, deadly, death, deaths, died, grief, grieve, grieving, passed away, and Corona, coronavirus, COVID, Covid-19, Covid-19, excluding beer, drinking, drunk, because I'm just trying to get rid of the Corona beer. Like, this man died from drinking too much beer. I don't want to have that. So that kind of gets rid of that. And the way this works is it's looking for dead and Corona, or deadly and Corona, or death and Corona, or deaths and Corona, and so on and so forth. And then dead and coronavirus, or dead and yeah. So anyway, you get the picture. Using these combinations allows you to sort through the noise and really understand how many people are talking about death related to coronavirus and not talking about beer. So what we've done is we've done that for many things. We've done that for things like face masks. We were listening in for general face masks, actually not even related to coronavirus. Hospital. So, you know, hospitals related to coronavirus. What else is there? Job loss. You know, people saying they got fired because of coronavirus. So this is how we've set up the social listening. And then this is really what makes up these things, these keyword groups. So let's jump in and see what the overall trend is. So I'm just going to filter back in coronavirus as a whole. And let's look here. So March 13th. So if you were on the last two webinars, the March 13th date is the peak. As far as we have yet on record to date, this is a peak at 27.75 million. Mentions on a single day, March 13th. This date was also the date that all sorts of announcements happened. Let's just have a quick look into this. But we had, I think Boris Johnson got coronavirus. I think there were just masses of announcements made all around the world on the Friday. I think everyone was like, oh, wow, there's so much happening. Every government pretty much had some announcement to say, this is getting dramatic. So this is going to take a little while to load in because it's such a large number of records. So while that's happening, I don't know if this will change my query, but I'm just going to have a look in and let's see what the other topics are. So naturally, you've got testing. And I think, as I said, a lot of people got tested. A lot of people tested positive on the stage. That was a big milestone. So you can see that was like that. But then the testing conversation has actually declined since then. So, which is very interesting. You can actually notice that all conversations generally have been declining, which is a good thing in a way overall at a macro level. But you have to keep in mind that we're looking at a very macro level. Like while these may be declining, it doesn't account for specific detailed topics within each country. You know, you could have a massive increase in one country's cases and it would show up for them, but it won't show up as a macro view because things get dwarfed. Um, what is good is that there's definitely less. It's definitely spiked from a social media perspective, I think. Oh, okay, cool. You can see here some English. I think I have pink eye in the middle of the coronavirus outbreak. That's terrible. I feel bad for laughing. Prince Charles has now also died of coronavirus. I don't know if that's correct, actually. I don't. Did he die? I don't think he died. You've got to look out for fake news with this kind of thing. So yeah, it's interesting. But let's zoom in a little bit and see what else is going on. So maybe more recently, April 7th, there's a little spike on the hospitals. So let me just take out a few of these other things. It is quite reassuring actually to see it going down. Just keep in mind that this is not a cumulative graph. So if it was cumulative, you would see this go up really high and then it would keep increasing, but at a slower rate. So this is a slower rate of increase of the overall mentions, but in reality, it's it's a lot of volume. Great. So we've got here on April 7th, Pune police imposed restrictions. This is India. Shops related to essential services to remain open. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., 2 hours only. Wow, that's going to really cram people in. A crew member of the U.S. Navy hospital ship dispatched to New York Harbor to help with coronavirus has tested positive for the virus and it's been isolated. Nurse at Brooklyn Hospital on coronavirus protective clothing. It's a garbage bag. It's like something out of the Twilight Zone. That's quite funny. So, and you can also drill in, and this is the great thing is you can kind of get, if that wasn't clear, like I can actually look at the article that she was referring to. Oh, there you go. That's beautiful. Plastic bags. But I guess it works. If I want to see the tweet as well, I can also see it here. Yeah, that's quite, I don't know if funny is the right word. Kerala, that's in the south of India. 28,000, this is China. 28,600 nurses battle against COVID-19 in Hubei. High quality nursing service makes great contributions, reducing the death rate. Oh, look at that. All hands together. This is in Australia. Oh no, England. 758 patients have died in England after contracting. Yeah, okay. That was a few days ago. So while that's there, let's have a dig in, see what else there is that is spiking recently. Had little things. Education. It's a little peak on the 25th. And in reality, like this, while this seems flat and declining, as I said, like if you zoom in, there's little mini spikes for each country that contribute to make that one flat amount of 100,000 posts on a day. So it's really about drilling in. What else have we got here? Job loss. Job loss I'm very interested in. Let's just zoom only into job loss. Okay, job, a little bit hard to see, but it's a yellow line. So actually quite a low. And if you look at this, it's actually the lowest it's been since March 11th. So back at the all-time low in a month, which hopefully is a good thing. Let's see what people are saying on the lowest day. Rising unemployment for COVID, rising COVID-19 fight threatens China's poverty targets. Okay, there's China feedback. San Antonio's emergency food bank has served 10,000 families in one day as more than 16 million US citizens filed for unemployment. Wow. Canada passes bill to pay for employees' salaries to avoid mass layoffs. Can I be laid off during the coronavirus crisis? Okay, I think that's not a request. The Chinese coronavirus has brought unemployment to about 10 million Americans in just 3 weeks. In past times of unemployment, such depression has been met with record low legal immigration levels. Interesting. So there's some kind of discussion around the impact on China. There's some interesting stories that are coming out. So yeah, very, very interesting. I could just kind of read this for hours. I wonder what people are saying about being quarantined. So if I look at the keywords for this is really people saying that, and again, low, so low. Maybe people are getting used to it. I wonder if this March 31st is one of the last times that people started kind of focusing on it. Everyone's been quarantined for a while, I guess. Some of these early spikes. You can actually see, this is a very interesting one. There's a trend. Friday, Tuesday, Monday. So I'm not sure if maybe this Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So this is a Friday, that doesn't correlate. This is a Tuesday, start of the week. Sunday, Monday. What I'm trying to look for is I feel like there's a pattern here. This one's a bit funky, it's a Friday, but I feel like this is a Tuesday, a Monday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, it's hard to correlate, but you could almost say that people, when they start their week in quarantine, talk about it. Maybe they just say, I'm starting another week quarantined, is maybe what they're tweeting. And a lot of people tweet that because it's maybe a shared emotion. This is the thing that is really quite exciting for me around this technology, is that it's really a macro view into the feelings and emotions of the earth as recorded in Twitter mostly. So, and if you think of every person, if there's a subset of those people that are on Twitter, you know, for every 100 politicians, there's 10 of them that are on Twitter actively, and maybe representing the other 90 that aren't on Twitter. But it's that representation of the globe that it's really unadulterated. This is unfettered or unbiased research, because this is people don't know that we're aggregating all of this data together and saying, wonder how many people mention quarantine on March 17th. No one knows that we do this. Well, you do now. Okay, this has come up. Well, let's see what people are saying on, this is March 17th. These are the top high influence posts, which give you a good indication of what's really going on. Government sources, 2 people were under quarantine in ITBP, Indo-Tibetan Border Police Camp. Okay, so that's in near Tibet. 2 who returned from Italy were staying at ITB. Okay, same banana. 2, okay. ITBP, Indo-Tibetan border. Okay. Shanghai expands its 14-day quarantine rules to cover passengers from more countries and regions. COVID-19 in Kerala, 76, including 43 doctors. Vice President of Uttarakhand, that's in India. I don't know if I said that correctly. Alex Hales in coronavirus isolation. Self-isolate. So you can see these are the keywords that it's picking up. Isolation. Obviously, these are the big news stories about who these people, like the big ones that get isolated. You can probably expect a lot of noise underneath. If you look at these guys are all high influence. Hong Kong to quarantine all visitors to preserve success of coronavirus. I don't know if that's quite said the right way. You don't really want to preserve the success of coronavirus. Maybe to limit its success. Am at home, quarantine after visiting institute whose hospital later reported coronavirus case. I have tested negative. That's from, I'm not sure who that's from, but somebody important. Yeah, so very interesting. What else? What else have we got? Sick. Okay, so this is also listening for keywords like being sick, and the good thing to report is it's not that bad actually. So very interesting. Let's just jump out of this one. Oops, one step too far. Okay. Uh, all right, that's going to load up again. Oh, that was fast. Okay, great. So let's look now at Corona versus Apple and versus Google. So if we look at the sentiment of Corona, you've got it's about 24.8%. This is over the last 6 weeks, remember? 32% neutral and 42.7% negative. So it's quite negative. Last time I looked at it, actually, it was a bit more even than this. If we look at, if we go down and look at Apple. So firstly, Apple is 45 million, Google is 26 million, compared to Corona, which is 718 million. So there's a lot. Oof, bad words here. 45 million Apple. So if we look at the neutral, we can see that it's a lot more neutral. It's 28% more positive. So it's about 3.5% more positive, and it's a lot less negative. 17.8% versus the 42%. So it's just over or under half as negative, if that makes sense. Very interesting. Let's look at Google as a brand. Similar numbers, 23%, a little bit higher negative, a little bit less positive. Go Apple, slightly winning with a lot of volume as well and a bit of neutral. So if we kind of compare that, we can see 24.8. So Corona, if it was a brand, it would be a little bit less, have a little bit less positive than these two amazing brands that invest a lot into their marketing. So this goes to show that while there's a lot of negative, there's terrible situations happening around the world, you've also got a lot of positive stories coming out, people helping people, people being happy and good news, etc. So yeah, it's very interesting. I like to do this, even though coronavirus is not a brand, but it's good to put it in context, to compare it against something, to say, how big is this thing? Like, how many people talk about Google every month? I don't know. And then when you think about it, you're like, okay, 26 million people talk about Google in the last 6 weeks. That's expected. I would imagine that. But then if you think about Corona, you're like, whoa, that's a lot more. That's like almost 1 billion mentions. Next time I do this webinar, it's probably going to be like close to 1 billion. So yeah, super interesting. I haven't zoomed into the word cloud. I won't spend too much time on this because it might take a bit of time to load. Next up, I'm going to go into Australia specifically and just look into what people are saying in Australia. You can see here a few non-English words here, which is quite concerning. To be honest, last time I did this word cloud, I had 0 non-English words. So this is really, it just means that it's really just getting out. The whole world is really impacted. Lives, jam. I don't know what jam is. Is that traffic jam? Probably not strawberry jam, my guess. Good, good. I like seeing some positive words like good. Last time there were words like love. I don't see that word here. Time, response, castles, briefing, Americans, countries, fight. Yeah, and I'm just guessing what these other words mean. I could dig a little bit deeper. I don't know what this hashtag is. It's a pretty big one. The bigger they are, the more they're used. So there's some things that are really just taking over. Indonesia. Yeah, actually, I thought I recognized some Bahasa. Yeah, so I mean, if you can't look at this or don't want to, you can filter non-English speaking keywords out very easily. But it is a bit of it's a bit concerning, to be honest, that we see a lot like Indonesia, India. You see some of those countries. We will look into the countries and in a bit, so bear with me. Great. All right. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump into the next dashboard, and we're going to look at the same thing except for Australia only. So this dashboard is pretty much the same. It's just filtered by Australia. I've got a few differences in this dashboard. I've actually zoomed into some of the topics already. So you can see here that Australia has 3.3 million mentions in the last oh, it's in the incorrect range. Let me just fix this. Apologies. Very easy to work with Social Studio. Just change the date range. That'll reload. Again, like I just showed you 700 million mentions. The most in my professional life that I've probably been able to search for in a query is probably about 3 to 5 million. That's realistic. Anything bigger than that, I've like, it's either not my client or I've just got no point in doing it. So this is a large scan. And the fact that Social Studio is handling it and not breaking is amazing, actually, in my opinion. Okay, cool. So we've got 4.3 million in the last, since March 1st, in the last 45 days or so. We can see here is the trend curve. So it's the same as what we saw before, right? The March 13th was D-Day. That was the big date where everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? Global upset. And then ever since, thankfully, there has also been a decline in mentions in Australia. And if you kind of zoom in into the last, like, I guess March 29th, that's the end of the month, until now, it's a very positive decline in people that talk about it. So again, just for the comparison, I want to look into Google, Apple, and Corona in Australia only. So how much do Australians talk about these brands versus Corona? And the answer is they talk about them this much, which is quite a lot. It's 170, oh no, anyway, I'm not gonna read that out. Google, Apple, and then Corona. So it just shows you the scope and the scale. Okay, let's zoom in. I did not mean to do that. Let's zoom in to the top words. So there's the top words in the last 6 weeks for Australia. I have another dashboard that looks at the last 48 hours. I will show you that. Just bear with me. So I'm just going to change this filter, influencer score. This is my favorite filter. You have to have a bit of patience while it loads. Now both are loading. So I'm just going to sit here and wait for this to load. Great, here we go. Okay, so this is what Australia is saying about coronavirus in the last 45 days. Ozpol, big there. President. So there's a lot of Trump still in Australia. Like our big media agencies still talk about Trump. We retweet it. We do talk about Trump, whether you want to think it or not. Patience, Corona, think. What that's about, think. Social, protect. Victoria. I wonder if New South Wales is in here. Ruby, good old Ruby Princess. Poor Ruby Princess. That boat will have to rebrand after this, I think. No one's going to want to go on it. I mean, would you? I think we are ready inside Australia's race to prepare for COVID-19 peak. I'm still learning. I think the number of virus particles that needed to infect you is 20 for norovirus, 100,000 for SARS. Interesting conversations happening here. These are ranked as top influencer scores. So this Dr. Carl, who's this guy? Dr. Carl, 331,000 followers. There you go. That's why. Interesting guy. So he's an interesting influencer. And I mean, just side trip, you can kind of zoom in and add more information about him, influencer. I can tag him and I can report on him and I can start to engage him. And yeah, side note. Great. So what else are we doing here? Public passengers. Oh, I bet there's a lot of passenger trips. This has been a common theme, this Ruby Princess thing. Okay, amazing passages at the Kigali bus park. Have to wash your hands before getting onto buses. Rwanda, interesting. So, I mean, obviously this is probably tweeted or retweeted by an Australian. 9 News patient zero for coronavirus on board the Ruby Princess may have been a crew member serving meals to hundreds of passengers. What? That's not good news. Police suspect a crew member. Okay, same story. Poor Ruby Princess. Victoria's tough coronavirus crackdown has been extended for a month as a plane loaded with infected cruise ship passengers arrived. Yeah, this Mercy mission. It's very interesting. I guess that's probably why there's been a lot of Victoria here. Home. People are home. Wait, I'm gonna look into good. Let's see what's good. What is good that's going on in this conversation? Yeah, so it's very yeah, it's interesting, and this is changing a lot. You know, this is very different to last week I looked at this. Okay, Eve online reactivates Plex for Good charity campaign. So far, so good, but don't count on a quick coronavirus recovery. I think now is a good time to buy property despite challenges. Great. FYI, there's a little property investment tip to get a good understanding of it. Okay. May not feel like we're winning with another 3 people losing their lives, though we're in a good place. It's great. Yeah, so this is a really great tool of discovery. I can have a deep look in. Let's jump into to this guy again and see what the Australian concerns are. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, what have we got here? What have we got here? So I am just going to edit this, and I wouldn't usually do this just on the fly in a demo, but it's kind of good to see how easy it is. Whoops, made a mistake. Just want to edit this because I noticed I added some keyword groups in that are missing. Okay, and this is where my demo fails me and it does something unusual. Okay, bear with me a second. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulty. It wouldn't be real if it wasn't real, right? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna try that again and be a risk taker because it is a Tuesday. All right, so I clicked on the wrong button. I was supposed to click on this filtering. And what I've noticed is the new keyword groups I added have not been included. So I'm just gonna re-add them, take out the ones I don't want, take out Duterte for my webinar later, and done. Apply. Great. Close that, save that. Easy as that, guys, easy as that. And I'm just gonna refresh it just for fun. Okay, cool. So now we should have these new topics added, hopefully. No, I didn't even add them to this one. Okay, if I go into the right one. So this will have those new ones I added, like I added death and recovery, which are very interesting topics to listen for, and a couple of others as well. All right, so that's not playing nice. I'm going to just scroll down and come back to that. So we've also got a zoom in on some of these keyword groups. So this is a focus, this horizontal column is a focus on testing. So 181,000 mentions of testing. And if we look at the flow of testing, you can actually see it is declining. This is sentiment chart. So the red is the negative sentiment. March 13th again is that D-Day. But if we kind of look into what's going on recently, you can get a bit of a picture into kind of the negative side of testing. I guess the good thing is there's less volume of it. It's going down. Health officials have lowered the bar for testing in at least 12 hotspot areas as they've become concerned COVID could be spreading. Yeah, and I think this is really it's really the focus now is kind of zoning in on these hotspots. Education is also another big area of concern. You've got education providers that are going out of business. You've got teachers that are laid off. You've got students that can't student, international students that are stuck. There's so much happening in the education space, and I think there is a little bit of a spike there. I won't drill into it though. PPE, which fortunately isn't as big as these other two issues, but is a common problem. And if you look at the trend, it is lagged. Whereas you had the spike on March 13th for kind of everything else, PPE comes after. I think that's where March 22nd, that was a week later, everyone's like, what? We need masks, this is a problem. So that's very interesting. And if we look at the job losses as well, down here, 27K, probably not as big as you'd expect to hear, but you've got these spikes on, say, the Friday, Saturday, that was the big spike, and then Monday 23rd, Tuesday, Friday the 3rd, a little bit of a positive spike on April the 12th. What was this about? Australia? Let's just get the, oops, influencer score. This is about 723 posts that were positive. Federal government will slash the price of shorter university courses in an effort to train newly unemployed Australians. Wow, re-education is the key. So that was a big topic. Sarah Hanson-Young has called for about $500 million in funding for the redevelopment of the Australian War Memorial. What? Oh, to be redirected to help artists out of work due to COVID-19. Okay, that's much better. So there's some stories. Okay, same story. Federal government, same story. I've received a tip-off from an employee that Hello World have struck gold again, happily for them, even though they're travel agents with no work. Their close relationship with the federal cabinet has paid off again. They have the contract for the coronavirus information line. Amazing. Hello World, they are saved. That's a really big travel brand, actually. So that's the thing, is these guys have been creative. They've got a contract to redirect their resources to something that is relevant. Good for you, Hello World. That's a really great success story. What else is there? Hello World again. 550 sailors on the US Theodore have now tested positive. One was even found unconscious. Okay, that's not a positive story. Sometimes it can pick up stuff incorrectly, and with Social Studio you can actually just edit it. It's quite easily incorrect, and that will adjust it. So it is possible to correct it in the case that it hasn't quite understood the sentiment. Which, by the way, most humans have a hard time understanding sentiment and agreeing on what it should be. So it's not so easy. Great. All right. So let's go back up. Okay, we've got this loaded now. We've got the topics. So this is Australia's topics. So this is kind of similar to what we looked at before. Like each of these represent one of those topics, but let's just drill in. So hospital is the orange one. Okay. I mean, it's there. Death. Oh, that's not a good one. Okay, let's take out Trump. Let's take out testing. Let's take out education. We've talked about that. Quarantine, let's leave in. Sick, let's leave in. Corona face masks. Face masks. Oh, let's leave in. Recovered. Yep, let's leave that one in. Retail, I'll take out. Self-isolation, I'll take out. Job loss, take that out. We have just talked about that in e-commerce. Okay, so I'm left with these guys. So masks. Okay, so sick. I think we've talked about sick. We had a spike on the 13th, and there's kind of little spikes, but generally it's deteriorating. And I'd expect these will be made up of people in Australia talking about being sick, feeling sick, etc. So let's take that one out. Okay, I think the one I want to talk about or want to look at is death. This is the first time I've also seen this. I've literally added this earlier today as a keyword group. So this is probably one I haven't really thought about what these posts could be. What I have searched for is keywords related to death, dead, died, etc., as well as grief and grieving, those kind of words. Okay, so 22,000 Americans have now died. We're all grieving. We're together but alone. The reality of grieving under COVID-19 restrictions. Wow, that's quite a good point, is that we're very lonely in isolation and grieving at the same time. What else have we got? Aussie TV screens. Okay, Tim Brooke Taylor has died. And the Prime Minister almost died, but he didn't quite die. So that's good. That's great news as well, by the way, UK and the world. I think it would have been terrible if it had gone the other way. And it's really great that he survived. Brush with death is what they're calling it. Great. There's a lot of controversy from this poor Ruby princess. I don't know if poor is the right word, but it's regardless, it's nobody intended anything bad to happen. Great. So that's deaths. The green line, look at that not going down. That is a steady growth curve. I'd be surprised if that goes down, but hopefully. Maybe the 26 will be the peak. Maybe. Maybe. Do you think? I don't know. Hopefully. Okay, let's take away death. Let's look at recovered. So I'm going to take away quarantine. We've kind of talked about quarantine. Oh no, yes, take that away. And face masks. Face masks are, see, it's started up late. I don't know, is this one going to decline? Are we at the peak? Was April the 1st the peak in Australia? It's hard to say. So, and if we look at recovered, good, good. It's kind of like we want that to keep going, Australia. All right, so that's that. I think we've kind of done Australia last 6 weeks, 4.3 million. If we look at the last 48 hours of Australia, and this is really just a zoomed in view on 48 hours, what that looks like. It's so important that you look in and out. Like, you can't understand a micro situation unless you zoom out and look at the macro. And equally, you can't understand a macro system unless you have really delved into all of the subsystems and things that make it what it is. So we're looking at last 48 hours, which is 1 day ago. So it's as of yesterday. We can see here that this is the voice, the share of voice trend. If we take Corona out, there's the topics, but leaving Corona in, you can see that the lows are 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. So these are where people are asleep, except for about 700 or 800 people. So these people are up all hours of the night tweeting in Australia about what's going on, coronavirus. If we look at the spikes, it usually picks up, so 7, 8, 9. So about 9 a.m. is really the spike, and then people start their day, they stop chatting online. It comes back to around 5, 6 p.m. There's another little peak after work. Everyone finishes work, has a tweet, and then drops off, has dinner, watches some TV, back again, 9 p.m. I feel upset. And then that's my kind of last thing, except for the late owls. These guys are just cranking it, burning the midnight oil. Maybe there's a bunch of shift workers, who knows? And then it comes back again and starts the rotation again. And this is actually what happened this morning. So Tuesday, April 14th at 12 p.m., which was an hour 20 ago, 3,395. So super interesting. Let's just drill in a little bit to that. Okay, we can see here that hospital is the big conversation. Testing is next. Wow, and so how this conversation unfolds, you can see actually the most active conversation at 3 a.m. is testing. Sorry, hospitals. And again, back here as well. So that's very interesting. Testing also follows a similar curve. You could almost say maybe some of these posts are shared. And then under that, testing and hospital, we take those guys out. April 13th. That's not March 13th. So we've got Monday, two big spikes of education. What's this one? Tuesday, Monday. Oh, Tuesday because it was a public holiday Monday. So, oh no, because this is 2 days. Sorry, I lost that. So it's all Monday or Tuesday. Looking for a spike, but I think actually they're just big topics. Job loss in the brown. I'll take away sick. It's been a few posts about being sick, higher than the last period, 51 to 50. Retail, self-isolation. You can see the spike here on 7 a.m., 9 p.m. when people feel most isolated. Yeah, so very interesting. I mean, you'd have to really spend a bit of time in there to understand what's going on. If we look into each of these topics, again, it's the same: testing, education, face masks. Yeah, it's very interesting how the sentiment kind of travels. Okay, great. So we're almost done. I've just got one place I want to show you now, which is the workbench. And we're going to do a full data set analysis on the 6 weeks data. Hopefully this won't take too long to load. Give it a second. It's 700 million records. And while that is happening, so I'm going to talk ahead a little bit while this is loading on how do companies make use of this as a brand. Oh, there it goes. Okay, it wasn't that long. Okay, I'll get to that. Let's just start and I'll keep talking. So we'll start drilling in and let's understand out of these 720 million mentions, what's the age, what's the gender, what countries, what's the country trend, what else? What else do we want to know, guys? There's so many things we can find out from this beautiful data. Hashtags, what are the top hashtags used? Okay, hopefully all of these populate. Again, I've never done this on 720 million records. Sentiment trend, let's have a look at that. Okay, we've got some things popping. Top words. Last week, actually, when I did the study, I literally found a possible cure for COVID-19. And I don't want to, apparently it's illegal to claim that you have a cure, so I'm not doing that. What I did do was find a spike that was alluding to a possible cure, and there's a lot of hope placed on it. And that was like within the last day or so. So really interesting stuff. Yeah, so you can see here, these are populating a bit. Some of them might take a bit of time. If we just zoom into the countries, this is really, this kind of shows you where the volume is out of all of those guys. So unknown is kind of Instagram or unknown, but mostly Instagram. So there's a lot on Instagram. Instagram just don't give us the APIs to get the country, that's all. US is big. US is also all of Facebook as well. So any posts in Facebook are considered from the US. So those two numbers are a little funky, but generally you could probably say quite accurately that US is leading the way in terms of those posts. India is coming up next. So number 3, well, number 2 really by country. India with 23, UK with 20 million, Spain, Brazil, France, Canada, Mexico, Indonesia, Venezuela, Malaysia with 1%, Argentina with 1%, Japan, Nigeria, Thailand. Where is Australia? Have I already gone past it? No. Australia is down there, 0.6%. Last time I ran this, it was 1%. So that's actually very good news for Australia, is that we have a reducing share of conversation amongst the world stage. Philippines also doing quite well down here, 0.4%, keeping low. Going down, I just need to find New Zealand. Singapore 0.1, Hong Kong 0.1, New Zealand, there we go, 0.1. Stay down there, guys. That's where my mum and dad are. So that is where the countries are. You can also see this. This is the trend by country, and this is starting it only started tracking from when I turned the topic profile on. So prior to this, you don't see this detail. It's just a bit of a quirk, but over time, this will actually flesh out and I'll see a lot more. So let's just remove the US. Okay, cool. And then we've got UK, March 26. Okay, and then these are all relatively declining. And what's good to see is there's the countries are all relatively declining, which I think is kind of fair to say because the overall globe is declining. Great. So just to wrap this up, we've got top hashtags, COVID-19, this other one that I don't recognize, coronavirus. Trump is not on there this week. Top words. So I think we've already kind of looked at that. Generally, male versus female, it's fairly even, but mostly male. And in terms of age groups, 25 to 54, 64, the top four, 25 to 64, 21 to 24 is a bit lower. The interesting thing, I believe, if I remember correctly, this 25 to 34 wasn't the top prior. So it's good to see the younger generation take more of a stand. Great. Okay, so just to wrap up, as a brand, if I want to listen for coronavirus, what I should be doing is listening for it and my brand. So what I really want to do is make sure that if anyone talks about it with my brand associated, I want to know about that. I want to get those reports, etc. So there's a few steps that we'd recommend taking with Social Studio to get your brand prepared so that you're giving it due diligence. You don't necessarily need to listen for everything, but you do need to listen for what's important. For many customers, there is a Social Studio free offer, which is a limited offer from Salesforce for the use of COVID-19 related social listening, publishing, and engagement. If you are availing of this package, then please do talk to us. We do have a free corresponding package for a very quick implementation so that we can help you get it up and running. So please, if you do want to inquire about this, either reach out to myself or contact@afdigital.com.